Welcome to Deep Economic Thoughts with economist and best-selling author Ivan Illan. Once in a while, Ivan shares an unscripted, though potent, idea related to economics or the capital markets. This may be of interest to financial advisors and retail investors alike. Enjoy.
Anyway, I'm Bruce Cook. It's a conversation tonight, and as I said, the conversation is between me and you in the Southern California listening audience that goes all the way to LA and down to North San Diego and out to the Inland Empire. And I'm bringing on my very, very good special guest friend. Actually, he's like a co-host because he comes on regularly. His name is Ivan Illan. He is a wealth advisor, an investment advisor. He's headquartered in Century City, but he's also in New York and Florida and all over the place. His company is called AWAIM Wealth Advisors Investment Management. Let me read a little blurb about him. You've heard him on the show before, but if you don't remember, he's an impressive guy. So let me read from his publicist blurb here, because it's all true and it's all good news. Ivan Illan is a Florida. There you go. I'm so excited. He's a Forbes thought leader and best-selling personal finance author. Inspired by his late granddad's career as a leading economist, Ivan began investing at age 13, people. As founder and chief investment officer, he crafts the AWAIM Wealth Advisors Investment Management Group into a global macroeconomic forecast and asset allocations for the ACGM Total Portfolio Solutions Suite. Ivan's economic commentary frequently appears in business media around the world. He is a member of CFA Institute, holds the accredited investment fiduciary AIF and certified fund specialist CFS credentials. He earned his BS in finance, BA in philosophy from Boston College. That's pretty good. Ivan, hello.
Hello, Bruce. Good to be with you tonight.
Listen to that deep, impressive voice, people. That when you have an investment advisor that sounds like that, your money is safe. Ivan, what do you think? Is your money safe these days? Or is the economy doing better? We've talked for several years, and it's been up and down. This week has been pretty good, I think, but what do you think?
You know, this past week, it reminds me, well, of looking at history. You know, I think you have to look at past times when the Federal Reserve has increased the Fed funds rate very rapidly. You have to look at history to see what really happened in these prior periods. And you know, they say history may not repeat, but it often rhymes. There's absolutely some truth to this when it comes to monetary policy and the implementation of monetary policy. By the way, that phrase, monetary policy, really scares people sometimes because it's really cryptic. No one really understands what it is, how it works.
So give us more of a definition. Give us more of a definition.
You know, I think one of the problems I think that we have in general is that people think the Federal Reserve Bank, the central bank of the United States and central bankers around the world, that these entities actually have more control than they really do. In reality, central bankers do not control the markets. They have very few tools in reality. They don't have a very broad suite of tools to manipulate things within an economy. One of the things they do have in the economy is something that's called the federal funds rate. This is a rate that a lot of people have heard about. It's the rate that's been rapidly increased over the past year and a half. And so people are familiar with it, but essentially that Fed funds rate is an overnight lending window between the Federal Reserve Bank and our banking system. And so, you know, nowadays that rate is at around 5.3% plus or minus. And the latest inflation print was like 3.2%. So right off the bat, you think, wow, maybe these central bankers have actually done the job.
It's a miracle. It turned around.
It seems like it's a miracle. We don't have inflation anymore. Okay. Well, actually, we have a colossus of inflation. Just over the past 3 years, we have a cumulative compounded growth of inflation and the price level of things in this economy of over 20% in just 3 years.
That's enough. That should be enough.
Huge number.
That should be enough to scare Americans from coast to coast, but it doesn't seem to be happening. We've talked about this before. Credit card usage is higher than ever. People are buying, they're traveling, they're doing, it's like there's no tomorrow. Meanwhile, you may have heard it at the transition, if you had connected to the show at that point, I said every industry from mom and pop to General Motors is on strike for better wages because they can't afford to live. They can't meet their monthly expenses. Things are not that perfect.
No, hardly. No, we're the thing about talking about monetary policy and looking at history and getting a sense of, well, how did these things play out in prior periods where we've seen rapid increases in rates? The reality is that it takes a while, and a while usually means around 2 years before you see the full impact and effects of much higher marketplace interest rates. Well, guess what? We're only about a year and, maybe a year and a half, but not even, like a year and a quarter since the Federal Reserve has really in earnest begun this rate hike cycle. So we have not seen the full impact of these of all of these higher interest rates. Businesses of all sorts have begun to feel the pain and the pressure. We have seen record numbers of bankruptcies already start to be filed. Chapter 11. I mean, these things are happening. We have seen very few refinancings of existing debt proactively by corporations. What are they going to do? Are they going to go to the marketplace and want to refinance their very low rate into a very high rate? Of course not.
Not going to happen.
That they're not going to do that. So what are they going to do instead? They're going to wait until they're up against the wall. This is what CFOs do. And then they're going to go to the CEO and they're going to say, hey, guy or gal, we can't pay the bill. So you got to lay off, 20% of the staff.
Right.
Because the quickest lever that any corporation has is its payrolls. And it can, and this is the other piece that I unfortunately think a lot of people are in denial about, which is not good. And obviously they've been spending and continuing to behave as really nothing has changed. But we have had a paradigm shift in the interest rate environment.
Extremely well put, Ivan. I personally find it rather shocking that even the average Joe doesn't see this. Is it in our human nature to live each day to the best and the fullest and not think about tomorrow? I frankly can't figure it out. I cannot figure it out.
There's a whole study in economics called behavioral economics. And in this study, we actually have multiple terms of different types of psychological and behavioral issues when it comes to money. Human beings, really modern man is kind of, it hasn't been around for a million years. It's, a few thousand years, but the human body has evolved over, call it several 100,000 years into, modern man. Our brains are hardwired in a particular way. They're hardwired for fight or flight. You're going into the jungle and you're going to go find some food. You find a target. You're hungry. You got to feed your family. So you got to go kill an animal. You got to go feed the family. So you're in fight mode. If you're under attack from that animal, all of a sudden now you're in flight mode. Well, that very basic behavioral instinct actually translates to the finance world, and we call it fear and greed. And so greed is when you're feeling bold and you're making very bad decisions, but that's when you're fighting, and that's the equivalency hardwired in our amygdala part of our brain, and so greed is sometimes, and maybe more often than not, a very ill-informed pursuit.
What do you think?
And fear is the opposite of that, where
go ahead.
You really are running and hiding.
What do you think is going to happen when those two very human frailties kick in and they spread like wildfire among our cherished American landscape?
Well, I think everyone should be looking at the kinds of things the kinds of decisions that corporations are making right now. And a lot of people, I think, are starting to get wind of this, because only just recently, last month, are we starting to see retail sales start to cool off a bit. And it was a big cool off and very abrupt. And so there's going to be indications. You see it with new hiring and all of the slowdown in hiring and jobs in the marketplace that are available. There's now many less jobs available. Remember, several months ago, maybe 9-12 months ago, you and I were talking about this plethora of jobs that were in the marketplace that were not being filled. I mean, millions and millions of jobs that were all these job posts that were just out there. And they couldn't find the people for them. Well, all those posts are gone. Nobody's hiring those positions anymore. So all of these available jobs in the marketplace have just vanished into thin air, because they're certainly not going to be hiring people. Now they're really concerned about whether they're going to be able to afford to keep all of these folks on staff, and certainly that's something the Federal Reserve is actually keen on seeing.
And why is that? Why is that?
Because until you see unemployment, demand at an aggregate level in the economy does not come down enough to put a true lid on inflation. And as a matter of fact, because you have so much cumulative inflation over the past 3 years, this 20+%, you actually, as a Federal Reserve banker, you want to actually see deflation, meaning you want to see the price of things decline, actually go negative. And all we're seeing right now is disinflation, which is the rate of inflation decreasing, but it's still inflation. We still have this growth on growth.
That 20%, that 20% over 3 years, and correct me if I'm totally wrong, is really an aggregate. Some sectors, it's far more than 20%.
Absolutely correct.
Specifically
Absolutely
housing, real estate, rental prices, buying prices. Nobody can afford to rent or buy.
I was reading something today in the Financial Times talking about Deutsche Bank, which has just essentially sold one of their financial district buildings in Lower Manhattan, something they bought just in 2014, not 100 years ago, just in 2014, less than a decade ago, and they are selling it for a $350 million loss. They bought it for $500 million. And of course, there's a lot of money out there in private equity, and there's cash in these big investment funds. They cannot. There's a 31% occupancy rate in that building.
And what does that say that people are not paying attention to?
Well, the world has changed. The world has absolutely changed in a way that is totally endemic in our society now. People do not go to the office every single day anymore. There are, a lot of companies, even my own firm, Mondays and Fridays, we have employees who commute in from far distances. They can work from home. And so what it really means is so many corporations are now reducing their footprints significantly because you don't have to have a space for every single employee every single day of the week. And this is a permanent structural shift. And so only so many buildings are going to be able to be converted into residential buildings. But that's the big pivot that's underway.
And the
many.
The end story of that is way down the road. Ivan, we need to take our quarter-hour break. We're a little past that time. Ladies and gentlemen, Ivan Illan, Bruce Cook, conversation, important topics, your money. We'll be right back. Don't go away. The conversation with Ivan Illan and with all of you listening to KLAA tonight. Ivan, in our last 10 minutes together on the air, the first thing I want to ask you about is the election coming in 2024. We're coming into that year. I brought it up earlier in the show. Election years are supposed to be good years for the economy. And the other part of it I want to know your opinion on, isn't the economy always the number one prime issue in any election in this nation?
Yes, it is. I think it was James Carville. You remember that strategist, that
right? Of course.
Guy,
yeah.
And he said, "It's the economy, stupid."
Exactly.
This is what every election always comes down to. People will vote with their wallets, and if the wallet is feeling pinched, they will make some changes. And so this is actually one of the things to be a little bit concerned about, because we've already seen such aggressive spending. You may find some big gifts being doled out to Americans in 2024, which of course many have become used to receiving big gifts and prize money essentially for being a U.S. citizen, because the pandemic was a really good time of taking these types of receipts. So I wouldn't put it past either the current administration or a Congress that is more Democratic majority to actually introduce types of bills and helicopter money essentially that can come in, especially if you see the payrolls contract very rapidly because of the scenario that I had discussed earlier with these higher rates and these refinance rates. Corporations are going to be laying off people. People are going to be out of work. And you could actually see the government say, oh, yeah, that deal that we had during the pandemic where if you went on unemployment, you get this extra kicker subsidy. Yeah, we're going to do that again. And this is like it's just craziness, because
you know what?
There's no fiscal responsibility with that at all.
Well, we've seen that, and you know what? Since you brought it up, I'm going to get myself in big trouble because the economy is the primary issue, and we're talking about the people's money. The government collects money from all of us and all of our businesses in order to take care of business, but they've become a social engineering firm. The calls can't come in because our show's almost over. I propose, and it's not original to me, you do not get to vote in this country unless you pay and file a tax return. And I don't care if it's $1 in taxes you pay or $1 million in taxes. You have skin in the game, because government in this nation and this time is all about distributing the people's money. And your money and your signature is on that line in the ballot box. How horrible is that?
It's a very interesting idea, Bruce, because it's actually one of the fundamental ideas of the formation of this country, which was no representation, no taxation without representation.
Exactly.
This is a very fundamental belief, of the founding fathers, and so to put that in a current context is not unreasonable. It's just highly politically perhaps impossible, because we're just so far away from that kind of mindset at a society level. But it's a great idea, and it's rooted in a reality of fiscal responsibility. But we're so far from that as a guide at this point, in our world.
Well, the thought was that elections should be free to all and free to people that are marginalized in society, free to people of color, free to immigrants that may be working in the country and contributing to society. Well, those people, even non-citizens, if they're doing legitimate business, they are paying taxes on those monies. So they're not being excluded from an election system that says you have to be a taxpayer, but they have to be responsible like everybody else in order to understand why they're paying taxes and where the money is going. Anyway, enough of that soap opera. As we have a last minute together, share how people can reach you, Ivan.
Yeah, they can give my office a call at 310-795-0622, 310-795-0622, or go to our website, alignwealth.com, ALIGNE wealth.com, and we'd be happy to continue the conversation.
Listen, it's always great to have you on. I hope you'll come back often. I appreciate everything you have to share. I hope you have a very happy Thanksgiving, and same to you, ladies and gentlemen listening. It's Thanksgiving week. You better celebrate. Take the message to heart. We need to do that. We really need to do that. Good luck to everyone. Bring that family together. Bring your friends together. And celebrate the joy of the season. And don't forget to come back and listen to me on Angels Radio Sunday nights at 6 o'clock. It's my honor to be here. Ivan, thank you so much. Goodbye, everybody. Good night. Good week.
For more deep thoughts, please subscribe to this podcast. Also, please feel free to visit www.ivanillan.com to submit questions or topics through the contact page. Until next time, keep thinking deeply.